What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Black Experience. How's everybody doing? I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone is enjoying their day, their night, whatever time you're listening to this, whatever day it may be. Today, y'all, I'm very excited with the guest that I have today. Today, y'all, I have someone who is a husband, he's a stepdad, he's an artist, he's a former track and field record holder for the 200 meters here at Western Washington University. So let's put our hands together and let's bring up my good friend, Lenny. How you doing, Lenny?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking the time. I know,
appreciate it.
just like my other guests, you're just as busy as them too. So.
Not as busy, probably, being retired. So
Yeah. I will say, Lenny, on our way here, I did notice the hat you're wearing.
the hat.
And
Yes.
I love the hat. It's so fitting with the podcast. But if you want to just tell us who's on your hat a little bit and what the motivation was for buying that.
So the hat, motivation for buying the hat was basically not to allow, we'll say, the history of Black history be erased. So it has Malcolm X on it. It has Martin Luther King on it.
Yeah.
It has Rosa Parks on it. So it has basically that whole Black experience through the '60s, with the civil rights era and such like that.
Has all the greats.
It has
pretty
all the
much.
greats.
Man,
Has all the
I might,
greats.
I might have to cop. I might have to get it, the same kind of hat
Yeah,
too.
not a problem. I understand. I understand.
How would you say so right now it's Wednesday. How's your week been so far? Has it been mellow, chill, or more busy?
This week has been a little busier than usual, but it's not bad. It's not bad. Middle of the week, the weather's changing. It's good. It's
Yeah.
all good. So,
Yeah.
and like I said, I'm retired, so I'm at home. I work in my shop, do a little art, hang out with the dog, do a little exercise, try to stay somewhat fit, go from there. Yeah.
You mentioned your dog a few times.
Few
by the
times.
way. What kind of dog are we talking? Is it
It's
a puppy? Or
she's 2 years old as of May 4th. 2 years old. She's an American Bully.
American Bully.
American Bully.
Okay.
So American Bully is that fairly new breed. I think they're established in maybe in the '80s, late '80s, something like that. But they're kind of a Staffordshire Terrier, English Bulldog. American Bulldog mix.
Yeah.
So they're usually a little bit broader, stockier. So she's a tricolored American Bully.
Wow. So I'm assuming by the word bully, it's a bigger dog and like you said,
She's
stocky.
16 inches at the shoulders and she weighs 72 pounds.
Wow.
So she's kind of short
Yeah.
and wide.
I want to meet your dog. I'm not the best with dogs. You know what I mean? I've been chased by future chihuahuas here and there, but
I understand. I do understand. She does make some people nervous at times, but she's actually really mellow and chill.
Beautiful. Lenny, thank you again for hopping on the podcast. I want to kick it off with a little bit about, if you want to tell us a bit, your background a little bit and what life looked like for you growing up.
So I was born in Los Angeles, California. Born and raised there. I was there till the age of 15, and then I came up to Seattle in 1972. Started high school in Seattle, Washington. Growing up in LA was LA. I mean, it wasn't like it is now, but it was still LA. And I think how I ended up in the Seattle area, to be honest with you, is because I was getting a little too out of control as a young person in junior high. Too many fights, starting to kind of hang out with the gangs when they were just kind of getting started up. Right. And my parents were like, it's time for you to leave this city. So they sent me to Seattle. So I went to Seattle and lived in the central area in Seattle on Capitol Hill, right off of 25th and Madison. Went to Nathan Hale High School. 3 years there at Nathan Hale High School.
Yeah.
I was bused, part of the busing program, so I would get up and catch the bus at 6:30 in the morning, take the bus all the way out to North Seattle, go to high school, and then take the bus home.
Wow. Nathan Hale brings back memories for me because, I don't know, his name is Michael Porter Jr.
Mm-hmm.
He's a professional. He's on the Denver Nuggets, but his senior year was my sophomore year, and Nathan Hale came to Ballard, and they played us in an away game, and I was like, on social media posting, we got this, we could beat Hale. Michael Porter ends up dropping like 40 on us, and they demolished by like 30 points, man. And it was one thing, but it was just like a treat just to see him in person, you
Yeah,
know. And then
right.
now you're like, he's in the NBA, he's a champion now. But
Yeah, I was at Nathan Hale. Like I said, part of the busing program. I think we had the black student population at Nathan Hale at the time was 50.
50 out of
50 out of my graduating class was 375,
wow,
and all 50 weren't seniors, but my graduating class was 375, so it was
Yeah.
50.
And so the busing program, I've heard about that before, but I don't know much about it. If you want to just explain that.
So what it was is basically you could be bused to schools to kind of, we'll say, kind of somewhat integrate those schools, because the closest school to me was actually Garfield High School. But when I came up here, my father talked to someone who worked in the school district and said, well, what's the best school for him to go to? And they said, well, go to Nathan Hale, and we can bus them out there, because there's a lot of kids from the central district, central area as they called it, and they would bus us out there, take the city bus out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite something, because I went to Garfield my freshman year,
Right.
and then I wasn't bused, but I actually wanted to take the bus because sophomore year, 3 days in, my dad picks me up and he's like, "We're actually moving to Ballard." Because the area that we were in Yesler Terrace. and it was
Yesler
really-
Terrace.
Yeah.
Right.
You know about it, huh?
I know about it, yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
so it got demolished, pretty much most of it, in 2016. And I was like, no, if I have to bus all the way down south to Garfield, I'll do it, just because I made my friend group there.
Right.
But I ended up graduating from Ballard, but it was tough.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as things have kind of, as time has gone, Garfield has become, I would think, Garfield has become a nice school.
Yeah.
It's become a very nice school. But yeah, I mean, I had friends that went there because they lived in the same neighborhood that went there. But I had friends that went there, went to Roosevelt, but I went to Nathan Hill and bust out there.
Was the Ezell still there?
Ezell's was
time?
not there at the time.
No.
Ezell's was not there at the time. There was a some restaurant, a catfish place on the corner, but there was no Ezell's.
Gotcha.
But that's the best Ezell's.
It's really good.
That's the best one.
It's better than the one in Wallingford,
Yes,
near Ballard?
it is.
because I've tried that one and it's not even close.
I think I've tried 3 of them. I tried the one in Wallingford. I've tried the one in Lake City, because now it's Heaven Sent or something like that.
Okay.
And then there's one in Everett.
Oh, they changed the name.
He lost rights to the name. Wow. So the ones that Ezell owns are called Heaven Sent. The ones that are named Ezell's were his former partner or whoever it was. He lost the rights to the name.
That's crazy. We got to spread that now to everyone, because everyone's like, let's go to Heaven Sent. Where's that at?
Yeah.
You
So
know what I
Heaven
mean?
Sent.
It tastes like Ezell's, but I don't know.
Yeah. And the one at Everett is, don't go to that one. That one's terrible. But the one by Garfield, the original one,
The
is
best
the best
one,
one.
the
That's
OG.
the best one.
The OG's usually,
That's the best one. Yes.
So you came from LA to Seattle. Your parents sent you here. I'm assuming you had family members here or someone here waiting for you?
So let me backtrack. My mother sent me here to live with my father.
Gotcha.
Because my folks weren't together. So my father lived up here. He had been up here since I was in the 3rd grade. So all those years through junior high, it was my sister, my mother, and I.
Wow.
And then she sent me up here to live with my father.
What was your first impressions of Seattle?
I had been to Seattle one time before that, in 1969. I came up to Seattle. My sister and I, we were younger, so we came up, and we stayed with my dad. And then the summer of '72, we came up to visit my father. Summer of '72, but when it came time to go back to school, there was only one plane ticket, and it wasn't mine. So my sister went back, and I stayed.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I stayed here.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I stayed here. Finished out high school, and I had a good time at Nathan Hill. I ran track all 3 years. Ran cross country my senior year to give me a, my thought process: run cross country, give me a strong base for track and field. So I ran cross country my senior year, and then ran track that spring.
Speaking of track,
Yeah.
I did say in the intro, you're former record holder for the
I did,
200 meter.
yes, yeah.
Now, I personally did cross country my senior year of high school, and then middle distance a little bit in track and long distance. We've done practices where the coach would make us do a 400
Right,
repeats.
right.
I can't imagine doing a 200 because I've done it before for fun and it's painful. So
You find it painful? That was my favorite thing.
the 200,
200, 100 and 200, 200. But the two, they're about the same. Okay, but my record was for the 200 here, and then after I left Western, about 2 years after I left Western, about 2 or 3 years, I was coaching track and running also. So I was a coach athlete, I guess. So I was running and coaching track. I was coaching at a community college. I was a sprint coach at a community college, and I was running then also. But 200 was my thing because, you got 200 meters. You got the curve and the straight, and it was like the perfect. It was a perfect race for me.
I will say it's not as painful as, let's say, like a 400.
400?
Or an 800. 800, in my opinion, is the most painful for
Never
me.
had to run 800. I ever run 400 a couple times. The track coach here, Ralph Vernacchia, at the time, there was times I ran, 100, 200, and both relays.
Wow.
That
You won all of them.
That was usually my what I was in store for every meet that we competed. I would have to run 4 events.
Yeah. So did you run back in LA, or what was the motivation behind choosing to run sprint?
I ran it in LA, but in junior high there's really no track. I mean, the junior high I went to, there was only one track meet in the spring, just one. You had the PE classes and one track meet in the spring. But I always ran. I was always known for running every place I was going. I was running every place I was going. So I came up here and ran track. We used to race around the block when I was in LA. When I was young, you see who could run all the way around the block. And so I came here and ran track. And I was good.
And you were good, and
I was good.
And so the record, do you remember the time?
I think it was, I want to say it was like 22-1 or 22, something around there.
Gotcha.
It was like around 22.
Yeah. And so that happened in your senior year,
That happened in 1980.
1980.
1980.
And then 4 years later, you mentioned that Fred
Fred Pulpus, I think his last name's Pulpus.
in 84.
In 84, he beat my time by, I think it's like 1/100th or one. His was like 20. Mine was like 22-1-2, and I think his time was 22-1.
Did that eat at you? Did that eat at you?
No, no. I can't stand.
Yeah.
It has to go down.
Well, we're actually we were talking before the show too, and you've never met the man. But
I've never met the man.
Another
But
mutual friend is trying to connect you two.
They're trying to brew up a race between two senior citizens. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one, but
You don't think you can take him on? I think you got him, Lenny. I've never met the man too, but I got confidence in him.
We'll see.
Oh my gosh, let's talk about Western.
Okay.
So now you're running track and you're here at Western Washington University. Take us through a little bit about your first impressions of Bellingham as a whole, and then Western as well.
So when I came up to attend Western in the fall of '77, that was my first time ever coming to Bellingham. I had never been up here to visit the campus or anything like this. It was my first experience. Wasn't a warm. Well, put it this way. So I came up. I lived in Ridgeway. That's where my dorm assignment was in Ridgeway. I could move in to Ridgeway, but the Commons wasn't open, so there was no, you couldn't walk up to the commons to get something to eat. So some other folks that had come up to Western that were attending Western at the same time were living in Fairhaven. So we all met. We went to Denny's, and there was a Denny's where Taco Time is located right now. There used to be a Denny's right there.
The one on Samish?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, kind of right in that area. There used to be a Denny's right there
Gotcha.
in that corner. And our first experience was we were at Denny's. It was taking a while for, kind of the waitress to come around. And there was a group of, and I can remember it very clearly, there was a group of 5 young people, I would probably around our age, maybe high school seniors or so. But I mean, they were driving at this point, so we'll say around our age. So they were there, and they had been waited on, and they were 2 tables away.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of waiting, and their conversation started to get very racial, we'll say. Their conversation was like, if I saw the N word, I would do this to him, and I would do this to him, and I would do this, and and it kept going on like that. And I was the only black at the table. It was the other folks I were with. I knew them from Seattle. A couple of them I just met right there in Fairhaven.
Yeah.
So there was 4 of us sitting there, and I had talked to the waitress, and I said, "Hey, can you do something about this?" She chose not to do anything whatsoever, and they just kept going and going on and going on and going on. So finally, I had had enough.
Yeah.
So I got up because he was talking about what he would do. So I got up and I went to his table, the person who was being the loudest, the most boisterous, and I picked up the glass of beverage that he had on his table, and I just poured it over the top of his head. And I said, "So this is a N-word doing this to you. So now what do you have to say? What's your response now?" And he just looked at me with this very dumbfounded, surprised look on his face, and he didn't say another word. And then I contacted the waitress, and I said, "Can I talk to the manager on duty?" She called the manager, told him about the situation, and I told him, how they did not do anything whatsoever, and never went back to that Denny's. Matter of fact, never been to a Denny's since.
Wow.
So that was my first experience in Bellingham.
I'm speechless. I was picturing that as you were taking me through that story in my mind.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to picture his face when you poured the beverage over. Was it a hot beverage or something?
No,
Or
it was
he
cold
drinking?
beverage.
Oh, okay. 'Cause that would have been painful too.
No hot beverage.
Yeah.
No.
What did your friends say when you got back to the table?
They were surprised also. They were surprised. They were like, "Okay, we can't believe you did that." And I was like, I wasn't going to try to sit there and just listen to this go on and on and on and on.
Yeah. Because he was eating at you. Because you were
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Man,
yeah.
let's actually see what happens.
Yes, right. So
X or Y happens. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Man.
So yeah, that's the first experience.
Man, so I mean, that's bouncing back from that first experience. What was, I guess, when you stepped foot on campus and you saw how Western wasn't very diverse. I mean, at the time too, you were just saying before the podcast.
Right.
Maybe, again, we could be wrong, but maybe 100 people,
Maybe
100
100
people,
maybe 100 black
potentially.
people. Yes.
How did that help y'all's friendship come closer together?
We became. I mean, you made a conscious effort to know everybody that was part of that we'll say that global majority, but on the campus that minority group, right? So, how I'm sure everyone knows. How you'll see another black man, and you might not know him, but you give him the head nod, right?
Give him a little nod, yeah.
Give him a little head nod. So take that one step further on campus, a little head nod, but it's also like, hey, bro, What's your name? All right, sister. What's your? You want to bring them into that very small collective that you have, that little group, and let them know that, you know, part of the family. If you need anything, we're here, right? So that's the kind of way. That's just the way it was. That's the way we were
Right.
on campus. So Joyce Taylor, who's on King 5 News, was up here at the time, and her sister was up here at the time, and we all just we knew each other. We we had house parties together and such like that, and the kind of house parties, that only that only that we are familiar with, house parties like that and such like that. And if you went down and you played hoops in the gym, you were down there with a whole bunch of other brothers, we'll say, down there at the gym and such like that. And even if you weren't playing, because I didn't have very many skills, I'm still going to go down there, we're going to hang out, and you're still going to, chop it up and talk trash and stuff like that. And even though I can't play, talk trash though. But, that's just kind of the way it was, right?
Yeah.
Or if you went into the commons right down here, then you looking around like, who's in there, who can I go sit with or chat with and such like that.
Right.
So it's just the way it is.
When you mentioned the house parties, because I remember I had Ted on
Right.
almost a year ago on the podcast,
Right.
And he was telling me about how the house parties y'all would go to together, and it would be like in pairs too, like. And whenever you guys would go to downtown, specifically off campus, it would be you'd
In
have to
pair.
be with another
You have to be
person
with another person.
just
in
for the
pairs.
safety aspect.
Right. Right.
Did that feel like that took away from your freedom, Lenny, or were you like, that's the reality, we'll do it anyway?
That was the reality, but it gave you a sense of security, right? At least you have one other person with you, right? So when you're talking about, Ted, he was my roommate. I mean, Ted and I have known each other since 1977.
Wow.
So a long time.
So
right?
since freshman year.
From freshman year, right? So, I remember there used to be a Black Angus restaurant. They were like a steakhouse, and it was on Old Samish. On Old Samish, and they had a little dance floor that was very tiny little dance floor, but they played music there and such like that. And him and I, you didn't go there by yourself. You went there with someone else, and him and I went there a couple of times, And I remember one time we went there, we step up the floor, and I was like, okay, we go to men's room, we go there, and a gentleman came in, and he just started spewing some crazy stuff, and we're like, why, So, and Ted said something to him like, "You take this outside, we can," but nothing ever came of it. The guy was like, I'm good," and he just went back and sat down.
What?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
So it was almost normal for
It was
these
it
kind
was
of
almost
events
it was
to
all
happen?
it was almost normal. It's almost normal because there was Black Angus had a little dance floor.
Yeah.
And then there was a place called the Ram, which is down there. It was down like where Boomers is at, kind of in that area right now. And you just go there, and it had a big dance floor. And everybody, all the brothers from town, anybody, you go to the Ram. I mean, there are a lot of people there. So like Jonathan, who's part of the group that you and I, Jonathan would go there, and Jonathan wasn't a student on the campus, but we see Jonathan down at the Ram and stuff like that. Yeah. So it was, dancing down there.
Did you have any good dance moves? Or you were grooving back then, Lenny?
Oh yeah, we were grooving back there.
Did you have a fro?
I had a fro. I did. Had a fro.
That's incredible. That's the one thing I'm like, man, I've thought about doing it. I'm just like, man, it's a lot of maintenance though.
That's a lot of maintenance. A lot of maintenance because you don't want it to look too dusty.
Yeah.
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 But yeah. We knew there's places like we didn't, people say, well, back then you go out to, we didn't go out to Linden, you didn't go out to Ferndale, you didn't do that.
Yeah.
You just didn't do that.
Because there, it's not even just talk. They might do something more.
Yeah.
Could
You
make
just didn't go out there.
I mean, even to this day, people have even, like, I've had some friends talk to me and be like, hey, if you're going to go up there, because the Popeyes is in Ferndale.
It's in Linden.
or is in Linden? It's in
Yeah,
Linden.
yeah.
And I've thought about going, and my friends are like, "Hey, you should be careful." I'm like, "What do you mean, man? Come on, it's in 2024."
Yeah,
But
and it's there's if you go to Linden High School, because I've been in there, you'll see there's quite a few folks of color in that school. Yeah,
well,
so
yeah,
you're good.
absolutely,
You're good.
absolutely. Lenny, man, so you've already told me some of these stories that you've experienced, and just how it's not easy, obviously, being a person of color back then, even today.
Right.
Growing up, was there, I guess, like someone that you look up to, some kind of role model figure that either gave you advice, was just like there for you to kind of help you out through these tough times while you were in college?
Boy, while I was in college, see, when I was in college, my father, my father had moved back to California. So only, the people I really had up here was the friends I had on campus. You know, so I mean, those people were my family. Ted was my family. He was my family. That was, so so say like on winter break and stuff, I stayed up here. I didn't go home because you know,
Wow.
I was a poor college student, so I wasn't about to pay a airfare to fly back there. So I stayed up here all holiday.
Yeah.
So I stayed in a friend's apartment in Brennanwood.
Running
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brennanwood.
I've got a few friends over there right now,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, yeah. So I stayed up here, but all my family was in California, but there was one gentleman that was my neighbor when I was in high school in Seattle, and I remained close to him for quite some time. I mean, sometimes holidays, Thanksgiving, I go down to this place in Seattle and such like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So family really is here in Bellingham for you.
Family's here in Bellingham for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the life, I guess, post college and ever since been here in Bellingham? Like, I know you do artwork now, you're retired, but
Yeah.
what's that been?
So post college, so after college, I went to the military. I was in the Navy for 6 years, and then I kind of just fell into a retail career. So, I worked at Nordstrom's in downtown Seattle for a while, and then I went to California, and I worked for Nordstrom's there, selling ladies' shoes. And then I came back to Seattle, and I worked for a place called the Luggage Center, a little family-owned place. But then I kind of really kicked my career off when I was. I've kind of been back and forth to California and Washington State. So I went back to California again with the Luggage Center, and I worked in Berkeley and Emeryville. And lived in West Oakland,
Yeah.
right at the foot of the Bay Bridge. So I was there during when the whole earthquake thing happened.
There was an earthquake. Was that in 80?
Yeah, it was like
86?
yeah, around that time.
Around
Yeah,
So you were there when that
we
happened?
kind of moved back down there right after it happened because the freeway was still closed at the time.
Yeah.
But then I came back up here, and my retail career kicked off when I started working for Target. I started at Target as a team lead, kind of a department manager, and worked my way up to a store manager. So I was managing this Target out here in Bellingham for 6 years, 7
Wow.
years. Yeah.
How did you get into shoes?
How did I get into shoes? I think one thing I learned from my father, my father, one of his sayings was, you always have whatever shoes you have, they always need to be clean and polished up. So my father was one of those old school men. He always had on a clean pair of shoes, and he always wore a hat. But he always wore a hat with a little brim on it, so like a pork pie hat or something else, a little brim on it. So he always wore a hat and clean shoes. And then once once I kind of got at Nordstrom's, I was selling ladies' shoes, but I was also like, into the men's shoes. But so I've always had shoes have always been my thing. Even when I was working at Target, I don't really sell shoes, but I always had nice shoes. I had to be honest with you, after I left Nordstrom's with Target, I had my own. There was a gentleman there who sold men's shoes. He was a men's shoes salesperson. He would call me up. I was one of his personal clients. He would call me up and say, "Hey, we got these shoes in. This is what they, kind of describe them to me. This is what they look like. I'll put a pair aside with your name on, with your size. You can come check them out."
Sheesh.
So I check them out.
Yeah.
I buy a pair, such like that. Yeah.
There we go.
There we go. And then I ended up my retail career with Nike, and then the shoe thing just kind of exploded from there.
I was gonna become Nike because I remember the first time I met you was at
Yeah.
the brothers meeting.
Yeah.
And we'll get into as to what that is, but you're wearing Nikes and you're wearing Nikes now. So
Yeah.
I thought I'd do the honor as well and wear
Yeah,
some,
I appreciate
some of my
that.
own Nikes
I
as well too.
appreciate that. I appreciate
I
that.
took a guess. I was like,
Yeah. So yeah, ended my career. So I mean, my sneaker collection is a little out there,
yeah.
a little crazy.
No, I as it should be. I'm working my way up too to get my sneaker collection, and I can see you're honoring your father right now because you're wearing a hat.
Wearing a hat,
You're wearing nice and polished up shoes.
Yep,
So
clean up shoes. Keep my shoes clean. They can't be dirty.
there we go. I agree. I agree
Can't be
personally
dirty.
with that.
I understand.
Let's talk about the brothers meeting. So
Okay.
I don't know if the audience knows too much, but and again, you'll kind of give the history a little bit about
Right.
this, but in October, I came to my first brothers to brothers meeting, and it's a meeting where a lot of the OG heads meet up once a month, third Wednesday.
Right.
And Russ had, I think it was initially Ted that connected me to this. And it's a lot of the black brothers that have been here for years, that some of them like Lenny that went to Western. And you guys were just meeting up in there, and I was probably the youngest or currently in
yeah,
college.
that is correct.
Kid, so I was like, man, am I in the right crowd, man? I'm just kind of feel intimidated by
Right.
so much wisdom around here. But
Right.
how did that kind of start, and what was the time that you kind of got connected to that?
So there, several years back, there used to be a thing called Loving Brothers, and it was. I think initially it was supposed to be something like what we have right now, but it evolved into something else, and nothing really came up. It was basically just a social time to go. You just go and you just go chop it up and talk and such like that. But as a lot of us in the group, as Ted and I really talked about a lot, is like we're at that part of our life where we have a certain amount of life experience and knowledge that I think we just want to share. Just put it out there. You take the nuggets that you can use, that you need, and run with it. Do whatever you can with that, right? So you have myself, like I said, I've been in the retail industry, so I know customer service. When I was running this Target store up here, I took it from an $18 million store per year to when I left. When I left that store after about 6 years, we went from 18 million a year to 26 million a year.
Wow.
Right. And so I know all those processes, what it takes to run a successful business on that scale. But what that means as far as your customer service and how you're interacting with your team and building a strong, successful, engaged staff team, right? So with that, we started talking about we need to put something together and bring in people like yourself and take some of the other we'll say old heads in town that we know and say, hey, why don't we share what we have, share some of this knowledge and put it out there and see what we can do. Put it out there and see what we can do, all right? Because we have a lot of knowledge, we have a lot of wisdom, and we have a lot of life experience, and I think we owe that to share that and put it out there.
And me, like, I can't be speaking for everyone, for my generation, but
Yeah.
I'll just say this for myself. Like, it's been very beneficial to attend those meetings. Not just because you're networking and you're meeting people and,
Right.
and I'm having more and more guests for my podcast,
Right.
but I mean, it's like the stories that you were just sharing today, and I was like, man, it's hearing about that and seeing how far that we've come. You know what I mean? Not to say that that can't happen again,
Right.
but maybe less frequently, or
Right.
we've made strides to
Right.
improve. So I've definitely loved it, and I've learned a lot from you to Bernard to Russ to Ted. All you guys are
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
So
and it's a learning experience for us also. It's a learning experience for us also because we go and we gauge each other, and we share our experiences, but we also learn from you, and we learn from other young men and young people in general. We learn things that we may not be familiar with and such like that. Because it's not about that we know everything. For me, you're continuously learning. So my thought is, I just want to be a better man tomorrow than I am today. So I'm always trying to better myself, learn what I can, and just keep on pushing, right?
yeah,
Keep on moving forward.
wow. What are your hopes and like aspirations for Bellingham, let's say for the generation even after me? Like if there was something that you could envision a Bellingham for black people, what does that vision look like for you?
Oh, you mean to get us from the 1.6% of the population that we are now,
And get that up there a little bit, yeah.
get that up there to maybe a whole
Whole
2%,
2% maybe.
2% of the population? Um, you know, I would really like to see us take what we have right now and build a community. So, meaning that we have, you were at the same thing I was at for, what was that, a couple of weeks ago?
At Hotel Leo?
Yeah, at Hotel Leo,
Yes.
right? So how can we take what, what's his name now?
You're talking about Brian
James,
Womack?
Brian Womack, but
James
also what's his Malik James.
Malik James.
Malik James, also known as Brian Womack. Take what he's doing, instead of us all trying to do our own thing, let's take that and kind of bring it together, right? Because when you have so many people all trying to do their own thing, then you just are fractured and disorganized. But if we can take what he's trying to do and take what we're trying to do, and let's just kind of form a community where you have that community, you have that strength, because from that community comes the strength, right? So, meaning, like I know when I was growing up in LA, everybody was, I couldn't be out there in those streets acting too crazy because somebody's going to tell my mother, So Miss Jones down the street, like, I know who your mother is. And don't be out here acting too crazy because I'll tell your mother, right? So the all ones, that community, they're watching out for you. They're keeping you safe, but they're also you feel that embrace and that love, right? So that's what I think I would like us to see. I'd like to see us get to that point, right? So where we're building that community, we can rely on each other. If you come to us and say, "Hey, I'm looking at a business venture. Can you guys give me some advice? Can you give me some pointers? Can you put me in the right direction? Can you put me in contact with the right people?" And as we keep building on this, yes, we can, and we can also give you some financial backing for that, and we can give you a base or a cornerstone to start with.
Wow.
And that's what I'd like to see us get to
Yeah.
that point.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful vision.
Right.
Going back to business,
Okay.
real quick. You said you took Target from 18 million a year
At that store.
at that store here in
That's
Bellingham to 26 million.
right.
To someone who's listening to this that wants to be a business major or want to get into business, what
Mm-hmm.
advice would you give to that person?
I would say probably just look at all avenues and opportunities that come your way. I would say don't shut down anything, or just shut don't just automatically shut down something and say, well, I'm not really, because I was in retail, and a lot of people say, retail, the service industry really doesn't, it really didn't do it, and I'm not going to make any money. And I can tell you from experience, being at Target, when I left Target, you can at a company like that, you can make six figures a year as a store manager. And when I was there, we had internship programs. And when I was there, I left Target a while back. But when I was there, we had internship programs. When interns coming just out of college, coming from Western, interns there, they were starting them out at 45 grand.
Sheesh.
So if they did their internship at the store, which was a paid internship also, so they did an internship. As soon as they got done with their internship, they'd offer them a position, and if they were done with school, then they start out at
They just hire him on right there.
they hire them on right there. They had completed the internship. They already knew what they were about. They knew what the company was about, and they'd offer them an internship and offer them a position. Hey, you can come on as this, and that was in 2000. That was probably 15 years ago. So I'm sure they're paying them more now. But I mean, it was 46, 47 grand
Yeah.
a year right out of school.
And that, like 15, 20 years ago, is
Yeah,
inflated now is a lot more.
a lot
So,
more. Right. So, it was. So I would just say keep your keep your eyes open for any opportunities that may come your way. So because I remember and I don't want to throw shade on it, but I remember at one of the brothers' meetings, one of the people there said, "Hey, I see this is what you're interested in. Hey, come talk to me. I might have something for you." And that person kind of shut him down and said, "Well, I'm interested only working for like the government." I was like, "Well, wait a minute. Here's an opportunity." And I went and talked to that young man later and said, "Here's an opportunity that someone was offering you. You don't even know what that offer was, but he was saying, 'Come talk to me. I might have something for you.'" And you automatically said, "No, because I really want to get into working in the, you know,
yeah.
working for the government." And it was like, "Okay, well, you don't know what that opportunity was.
Yeah.
It could have possibly been, you know, you could have made that into something else that would have given you that stepping stone you needed to get here, right?"
Oh,
So
absolutely. And I agree with that. I've seen it firsthand in my life too. It's, like I was mentioning, being BSU president,
right,
I didn't automatically be BSU president because, I didn't just run for BSU. But I had retention and outreach. And then the following year, I became president once we were back on campus. So
Right.
it's like what you're saying, like you go through one door and then that leads you to another door. And that door will then lead you to the opportunity that,
there you go,
that you
exactly,
want.
exactly,
So,
because just to go back a little bit. So when I was at Target, when I first started Target, I was the recovery team lead, hourly position, and I was at the Everett Target store. And a recovery team lead at that time, basically you just came in to work and you put back everything that people had returned or they had looked at and put back in the wrong spot. You basically recovered the store. You put the store all back together neatly for the next day's business,
gotcha.
right? So we would come in and we'd have shopping carts full of merchandise that we had to put away. And
Right.
da, da, da. So we would do that. And from recovery team lead, I went to an electronics department team lead. So that was the head of the electronics department. And then from there, I went to, they were like, "Well, we're going to open another store in Woodinville. You want to help us open a store in Woodinville?" And I was like, "I don't know anything about opening a store," but they asked me, and I was like, "Sounds like an opportunity. I can open a new store. Let me see what that door leads to. What does that entail to open a new store?" So with that, I learned how to open a store. So how you map out the fixturing and where all the shelving goes, and how to set up what they call is a planogram where you learn how to where all the merchandise goes on the shelves and
Right.
stuff like that. So basically, how to just set up a new store. So with that, then I have the experience of how to recovery store, how to manage our electronics department, and then how to set up a new store. So then the next time they open a store, oh, Lenny knows how to do this. He can be one of our leads when we open the next store, right? So then I go from there
Wow.
to I go to the Alderwood store as the distribution. So I was basically in charge of unloading the trucks and pushing all the freight to the floor. So I was in charge of all the shipping and receiving and stuff like. And I did that one holiday season. So then, so I have that experience also. So then I come in contact with a store manager that I'm working for at the time. She says, if you keep at this, keep going, you'll have your own store within 5 years. And I was like, I don't see that. I don't see that.
You didn't
happening.
believe her?
I was like, oh, okay, I kind of took it with a grain of salt. But then I said, okay, she's been around. She's successful as a store manager. She's been doing this a while. She's respected in the district. District managers love her. Corporate folks know her, so she must know what she's talking about. So the next opportunity came up to open a store, I jumped on that one also. So I opened the Northgate store. And then I became
next to the Best Buy.
next to the Best Buy. So then I became an executive team lead. So basically, you're no longer a manager of just one little area. You have 1/4 of the store. So you can have like all the hard lines or all the clothing or all, shipping and receiving and be all of that, the flow team. So I took that on, and within 4 years, I had my own store. 4 years, they came and talked to me and said, hey, we got a store opening in Bellingham. Are you interested? Sure. Let's take you up there, have you go look at the store. You tell us what you think. Great. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take
This
it.
is like firsthand like proof that your advice works.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, here's opportunities. Here's an opportunity. Let's go for it. And I was like, yeah.
You just
okay.
kept saying yes.
I just
yes,
kept saying
yes.
yes. Kept saying yes. Kept saying yes. Kept saying yes. And it worked out. Worked out.
Incredible. Lenny, man, this has been power packed. To wrap things up, though,
Okay.
because I know we talked about the business advice, but as a whole, when you take a look at the younger generation and me included, what general advice would you give to the younger generation in terms of life? It could be business again, but just overall in general. You look at us and you're like, here's some things, here's some wisdom I want to sprinkle to you guys. What would that be?
I would say it twofold. So I'll take it from we'll just say take it from a black perspective. First of all, do not run away from, how do I want to say this? There have been times where don't turn your back on who you are, okay, and who your people are, okay, because you're part of that global majority. You and I, we're part of that global majority, right? So don't take that and embrace that, but also embrace the folks that you see in the community, right? So I know, like, I'll see someone at the gym, and I was like, bruh, hey, I'll go introduce myself, right? Especially here in Bellingham, I'll go introduce myself. And I haven't seen you. Are you new to town? Oh, no, I've been here for a while. Wow, we haven't met. What do you do? Now, like, most recently I met a gentleman. He's part of the Border Patrol. Oh, how long you been in town? He said, I've been in town a few years. I've never seen you. Bruh, we should get together. We exchange information that way, right? We exchange information. So kind of make that contact, and that goes back to what I was saying, building that community, right? So then that's a name, that's someone you made that contact, you can build that community, because you never know what door that may open. You might be a person that wants to go into law enforcement, but hey, I know this man right here. And maybe he can give me some pointers. He can tell me who to talk to, where I need to go. But the other part of that is to know your history, and just don't study history and know your history just to know your history, but know your history and take those lessons from the history to also help guide you in your future and help you map out your trajectory from there.
Wow. Don't forget your history and make connections
Make connections.
as much as you can.
Make connections.
In fact, at the event, like right before we sat down at the table at Hotel Leo, there was a gentleman named Marcus that I met, and he'd been in Bellingham for maybe like a year,
Right.
2 years.
Right.
He'll come to the Bros meeting next week.
Yeah. And I met the gentleman that had on the jacket that said Tuskegee Airman on it, and he's been here before.
Yeah.
And we invited him also.
Incredible.
And then I went to the business thing down at that we had down at the
Oh, at the
ferry terminal.
Ferry terminal.
That
Yeah,
Eric
UPC
put,
event.
yeah, that
Yeah.
Eric put together. I met a man that has got they got a tea company out of down in Tacoma and such like that, and he's up through this. He lives down there, but he says I'm up that way all the time. Yeah. We gave him all the information. He gave his contact information. He says I'm gonna stop in. Yeah. I'm gonna stop in next time I'm up. I'm gonna stop in. I'm making my, that's we're making those connections, right? Making those connections, building that community, because with the community comes strength.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
That's what we need.
And I see that community coming in too. So.
Right. And I appreciate it. I see it coming in too with you, and I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you, Lenny, so much, man. This has been a good one. This has been an honor, a treat for sure.
I appreciate it.
But I hope y'all enjoyed this awesome episode, man. I mean, so many takeaways that I took away from Lenny's advice and from his stories, and hope y'all enjoyed this one. This has been season 4, episode 3. Stay tuned for more awesome episodes, more hard-hitting episodes to come. Until next time, guys. Peace.